if you don't have a model, then nobody will know what your products look like. So back to your point, which is that it's really about, how big can you imagine, where can you place your models inside scenes so that you get the most interesting photos? And I think that's really the focus of it.
Welcome to Honest Ecommerce, where we're dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running an online business does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. If you're struggling with scaling your sales, Electric Eye is here to help. To apply to work with us, visit electriceye.io/connect to learn more. Now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and today we welcome to the show Sahil Gupta, the CEO of Spase, which turns photos of products into 3D models. Welcome to the show.
Hey Chase, thanks for talking to me today.
Hey, absolutely. We had a little technical hiccups, but we made it work, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So let's talk a bit about what does Spase do for clients? What is Spase? S-P-A-S-E.
So what Spase does is we try to be a practical solution for augmented reality and by making models. And the way we make models is we take in photos as input, and then with a little bit of 3D software and just human imagination, we make the models. And it's a little timely at the moment because Shopify is turning on a 3D viewer for stores, and iPhones are getting better, Androids are getting better, cameras are getting better, displays are getting better. And so the real missing piece is digital models of your products. And to me, it's just the coolest thing ever, where the technologies where the models are actually photorealistic. They're no longer cartoonish. I really don't have to exaggerate the technology when I say it just is photorealistic. It understands the properties of light and space, and the models look real. So to recap, we make models out of photos. And it's really been made possible by the fact that now laptops, phones, and more powerful chips can make this happen. So we got started in June making models, and that was at Shopify's conference. It was actually a really exciting conference where they made the announcement that they're going to support the viewer for 3D models. And, the excitement's been building up, and actually it's been building up for a couple of years now. But the problem is nothing's really ever materialized because there's been nothing to look at. There's been a lot of news about VR headsets and, Apple glasses and AR glasses. But at the end of the day, it's really about, is there something to look at? Is there content? So I started Spase in order to, create this kind of content that's interesting and not just totally out of imagination, but trying to model things that already have meaning. So real world objects. And Shopify is a little ahead of the curve here, where they're enabling the 3D viewer for anything on any Shopify store. And not only that, but the viewer that they're using supports the universal file type called GLB, and it will work anywhere, across phones and into augmented reality. And I'm kind of reminded of a quote where the future is already here. It's just people aren't aware of it. It's not evenly distributed, but this is it. It's going to be this GLB file type where you can model the surface of anything and it'll be photorealistic. So long story short, we turn photos into models. And, for people who run Shopify businesses, I don't think it's really an exaggeration to say now it actually works. Models can really make a shockingly visceral visual impact in your store.
Absolutely. I have played around with some of the early adopters. You can put furniture in your house. You can put shoes on the floor. I mean, it's wild, some of the use cases that I've seen out there thus far. And it's really cool that Shopify was like, we're going to go all in on this. We think that this is going to be the future of commerce and it's going to change shopping. And I think I didn't know, but you mentioning that it was the universal file type, which that's cool to me because they understand that this needs to be available for everybody, and it's going to change the industry. You know what I mean? Whereas not having a kind of proprietary platform or service, that's kind of what some other applications do. So that's really cool. It being kind of, not necessarily open source, but kind of like a universal platform. Super sweet.
Right. And then once you own the model, you can do anything with it in terms of photography. So you can place the model in any scene and then render a photo inside the computer. at the cost of the electricity it takes to run the computer, which means that your photography is going to get way better too. And just, as an example, if you happen to have a scene of a movie modeled as a scene inside the computer, like maybe a scene from even like a Pixar movie, you could place your GLB inside that scene and then shoot a photo inside the computer. I think that's going to open up, a new kind of skill, which is digital photo making, and like digital interior designers. I think it's going to be quite an interesting, job that's going to be created as a result of what's now possible.
Okay, so what you're telling me is I'm just gonna kind of dumb this down for myself to see if this is possible. I've got a good looking photo, like a lifestyle photo of a scene. Let's call it the interior of my own house. Like I got a good picture on, maybe my iPhone 10, right? I've got a good picture here. Is it possible to take this picture that I've got on my phone, send it to myself, and pull it up in some software, and then place my 3D model in that photo where I want it?
Right.
That easy. Well, I mean, I guess it's probably not that easy, but once you have the model, it's from there, it's the software allows it to be easy, I guess.
Right. It's kind of like movie magic where once you have the model, you can do anything with it.
So the hard part itself is like getting the model, because it's a lot of math behind the lights and the angles, and it's a 3D rendered object, which I have a hard time wrapping my head around that technology myself. But like the hard part is getting that done, right? And then from there, it's like, well, where do you want to put it?
Exactly. There's also an open question though about, do I have to digitize everything? Do I have to digitize all my SKUs? And actually, just to get started, the most important objects, the most important products, your best sellers, like, are something that you can scan and get a sense of, how they look. It's really just a question of when, because Shopify is turning on the viewer. Amazon and Wayfair are also thinking about it, but the most difficult part is making sure your model doesn't have the opposite effect of turning people away, because the model just doesn't look photorealistic. So that's really where the level of difficulty is. And that, as an example, there's some models on the Space homepage. It is photorealistic, but it's also incredibly hard to get it right. But once you get it right, it just looks terrific.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part about shopping online, is all you're seeing is a one-dimensional photo. And that's why I've preached on this show a bunch, and a lot of guests have preached on this show. They're like, you need to go overboard with explaining the unique properties of your product, so multiple photos, videos when you can do it. How does it sound? You know what I mean? If it's something that makes noise, like the dimensions of it, even beyond that, to some of the other senses of like, what's it smell like? What's it touch like? I don't think you need to taste half these things unless they're a food product, but you need to get all that stuff in the description. And what this new technology is allowing is that whole visual element of it to come to life, like almost in your reality. It's like so close. This augmented reality, it's in the room with you. It allows people to really experience that object in almost real life, which is as close as I think we're going to get.
Right. The one part that shocked me is that it's actually, I think it's true to say that the photo rendered inside the computer can be more realistic than a poorly taken photograph, because the way ray tracing works and the fact that the lighting is placed where you deliberately put it, I think that gets to the truth of the product more than, some photo haphazardly taken. We already know this is the case because when we look at digitally, rendered movies, they've already figured this out. And that's why people go to the movies. And that's why it's just like visually the most interesting thing ever. Like movies are already the best virtual reality. So now it's just a matter of this technology's now been opened up to anybody who runs a store.
So with this technology, I think that if you're going to boil it down to like, how's having this 3D model going to help my store? And just like in one sentence, I would say it'll probably increase your conversion rate, just because people will be able to experience your product in that like insanely realistic way.
Right. I think Shopify had a statistic that it just doubled the conversions.
That would be insane.
Yeah, it just doubled conversions.
Yeah, and then I mean, if you use this technology, I mean, what would be exciting for me is to see this technology kind of expand beyond the product page. Like if you could start doing this in marketing, Like, if Facebook and Instagram adopted this, or, any of these other platforms, to where you could do some crazy stuff through Snapchat. I've actually, I've seen some augmented reality stuff through Snapchat, I do believe, already in the marketing sense. I wonder how that campaign went.
Yeah, I've seen those rainbows coming out of Mount Rushmore. It's like, yeah, they also have augmented reality, but it's a little more artistic there.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, my favorite form of augmented reality was Pokemon Go. Like, that's kind of what jump started it into everyone's like mind, was like, oh, this is how this technology works, and it was just a fun game.
Right.
But taking it beyond little creatures, you can do products. Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think that's the case, actually.
Let's be honest today. All of your customers are going to have questions. And what are you doing to manage all those questions? Do you have a help desk for your business? One of our sponsors of today's episode is Gorgias, and Gorgias is the #1 rated help desk for e-commerce. It integrates seamlessly with Shopify. We have installed it on a bunch of stores. It's also used by brands like Movement and Rothy's. And what it does is it takes all of your customer insights and information, brings it into one amazing dashboard so you can solve their problem as quickly as possible. If you want to give Gorgias a try, visit gorgias.link/honest. That's GORGIAS.LINK/HONEST to get your second month free.
And the more I looked into, what a GPU is, the graphics chip, that is the case where your imagination is the limit, and whether you can, organize it well enough. Say everybody, you have a supercomputer in your pocket, and right now it's being mostly used to enjoy, movies and YouTube and Netflix. But the next step is to just use that, extra power for augmented reality. And then, in 2 years, I think, or in 3 years, Apple made the announcement that they're going to release augmented reality glasses. And there, it's a no-brainer that, commerce is totally going to change, where it's going to be the digital models are actually going to be the most important thing, because it'll just be rendered, through the glasses onto your retina. And if you don't have a model, then nobody will know what your products look like. So back to your point, which is that it's really about, how big can you imagine, where can you place your models inside scenes so that you get the most interesting photos? And I think that's really the focus of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Before I let you go, is there anything else that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, I'd like to. I guess the real important thing is that for maximum visual impact, it's either going to be your photography that really matters, or the models on your store. It's hard to boil down sort of a lot of things that are about to happen in a few words, but I think one thing that might help clarify thinking is that, instead of using, virtual reality and augmented reality to explain what's going on, I think just things are going to start operating by movie logic, which means that just the visual storyline is really what matters.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sahil. If people want to learn more from you, where can they find you online?
So we're at space.io, SPASE.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Chase.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their journey and knowledge with us today. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our businesses. Links and more information will be available in the show notes as well. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, feel free to reach out and learn more at electriceye.io/connect. Also, make sure you subscribe and leave an amazing review. Thank you.